The night my family laughed at me, I went to bed counting their jokes like debts I intended to repay. My name is Elara. I had just quit a safe job balancing other people's spreadsheets. 6 years of tidy columns, fluorescent lights, and office birthday cakes that tasted like sugar and regret. I told them I was starting a ceramics brand out of the garage. Hand-thrown mugs and bowls with simple lines, warm glazes, and small imperfections you could feel with your thumb. I wanted to build something people would hold every day, something that felt like a home you could drink from. I had a name, too, Harbor and Hearth. My mother pressed her lips, then forced a smile. As long as you're happy, she said, like a prayer she didn't quite believe in. My father stirred his tea and didn't look up. He'd spent 35 years riding a delivery truck around the city, knees aching, hands permanently smelling of diesel and ink from shipping labels. Work, to him, was supposed to be heavy. My brother Audie leaned back and grinned. "$1 million mug," he said, tapping his glass. "Make one for me. With a handle shaped like money." Maya, my sister, bumped my shoulder with hers under the table. "Ignore him," she whispered, but her eyes were worried. We all knew my savings weren't deep. I'd set aside enough for 3 months of rent and clay. The kiln I bought secondhand rattled like an old bus. The wheel was a listing, stubborn thing that had to be coaxed into balance with a folded matchbook under one foot. Uncle Farid arrived late and loud, like always. "Entrepreneur," he said, kissing the air near my mother's cheek. "Listen, it's okay to have hobbies. But don't confuse them with a life." He patted my shoulder as if he'd said something kind. I smiled because it was easier than bleeding in front of them. "I'm not confused," I said. "I'm committed." Later, after the dishes, I showed them a few pieces from the first batch. The cups were cream with a ring of rusty brown around the lip, like a sunset had rested there for a minute and left a trace. My father picked one up, tested the weight, and put it back. Mom said, "They're pretty." The word hovered in the air, thin as steam. Audie opened the group chat he runs for our cousins and snapped a photo. A meme appeared seconds later, a cartoon man in a suit trading his briefcase for a lopsided cup. Everyone added laughing emojis. I kept my face calm. When I excused myself, my phone buzzed again. A bank alert. Balance, $712.81. The kiln had been $600 of that, the clay and tools the rest. Rent was due in 12 days. I worked that night until my wrists ached. Clay is honest. It remembers every tremble of your hand. It remembers how you breathe. The wheel sang in its low, steady way while I shaped cylinder after cylinder, trying to make them match like siblings. I told myself the company would start with a craft market, then a cafe or two, then a small online store. I told myself that once people wrapped both hands around something I'd made, they'd come back. Around midnight, Maya came to the garage in her socks, carrying tea. "You've always been stubborn," she said, smiling. "Maybe that's your superpower." "Maybe," I said. She left me with the tea, and I kept throwing, and kept failing, and kept trying again. By dawn, a dozen decent mugs sat on the board, soft as bread dough, drying under a towel. I turned off the light, finally ready to sleep, when my father's shadow filled the doorway. "I need the garage clear by Sunday," he said, voice careful. "Your uncle's bringing his car over for repairs." The mugs looked small between us, like a litter of kittens I had to defend. I swallowed, nodded once, and he stepped back into the hall. I closed the door, leaned my forehead against the cool wood, and waited for my heartbeat to settle. Sunday was 4 days away. By Sunday morning, the garage smelled like wet clay and cold disappointment. I'd moved every mug and bowl to my tiny bedroom. They lined the floor beside my bed like quiet soldiers waiting for orders. The wheel sat unplugged in the corner, next to a stack of unpaid bills. Dad was already out front, clearing space for Uncle Farid's car. I could hear the clang of metal tools, the sound of surrender disguised as work. Mom brought me breakfast. "You can always go back to the office," she said gently, setting the plate down. "They take you back if you ask." I shook my head. "I can't. Not after this." She sighed. "You've always been brave, Elara. But bravery doesn't pay rent." When she left, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at a mug I'd fired the night before. The glaze had cracked in a thin, jagged line down one side. Beautiful in its imperfection, but useless for selling. I ran my thumb along the edge, whispering to myself, "You'll get better. You have to." The next week, I tried my first craft market. The booth cost me $120, nearly everything I had left. I borrowed a folding table from a neighbor, printed my logo on cheap paper, and smiled until my cheeks hurt. People walked by, glanced, and kept walking. A few stopped, admired the pieces, and said, "Lovely work." But only one person bought something, a cafe owner named Tessa who picked up a small speckled mug and said, "These have soul." Her words stayed with me. She gave me her card and told me to call if I ever made more. When I got home that night, the family was watching TV. Audie was talking about his new car loan, my father about how proud he was that Audie was thinking ahead. I placed my empty cash box on the table and sat down quietly. "So," Audie said, smirking, "how's the art show? Sell your $1 million mug yet?" Maya shot him a glare. "Stop it." But my father chuckled. "He's joking, Maya. Relax." I felt my throat tighten. "I sold one," I said. Mom smiled softly. "That's a start." Audie laughed again. "One. Congratulations, Picasso. At this rate, you'll break even in, what, a century?" I got up before I could say something sharp. My mother called after me, but I just said, "I'm fine," and shut myself in the garage again. I didn't care if Uncle Farid's car parts crowded my space. I worked between them, balancing cups on the trunk, drying bowls on the hood. Clay dust covered everything. The next morning, Tessa texted. She wanted to order 20 mugs for her new cafe. My hands shook holding the phone. 20. It felt impossible, and yet, it was everything. I worked all week, day and night. Maya helped me glaze them after work, her nails stained blue and brown from the minerals. "Don't tell Mom," she whispered. "She'd freak if she knew I'm here instead of studying." When the order was done, I packed each mug in brown paper, tied with string. I delivered them to Tessa's cafe in a borrowed van. She paid me in cash, $540. I'd never seen that much at once. I drove home with tears in my eyes, gripping the steering wheel, whispering, "You did it, Elara." But when I came back, Dad was waiting in the living room with a serious face. "We need to talk," he said. He handed me a printed email. It was from my landlord. The house was being sold. We had 2 months to move. "What?" I whispered. Dad rubbed his forehead. "Your brother and I are pooling savings for a down payment. You'll need to find a new place, Elara. You can't stay here forever." I stared at him, unable to speak. Maya stood behind him, eyes wide, trying to mouth something like "I'm sorry." That night, I packed my mugs again, one by one. For the second time in a month, I was losing the ground under me. Only this time, I promised myself something quietly, fiercely. If they wouldn't give me a place in this house, I'd build one from nothing. And one day, they'd see my name, not in pity, but in envy. I found the new place by accident, a dusty storage unit turned workshop on the edge of the city. Cheap rent, cracked windows, a leaking roof when it rained. But it was mine. Tessa helped me move the kiln and wheel. She handed me a sandwich and said, "Every great story starts in a broken place. You'll remember this one day." Those words became a kind of prayer. I repeated them each morning as I worked. My hands toughened, my lines grew cleaner, my colors richer. I burned through nights, chasing shapes that felt alive. Within 2 months, I had a collection good enough for Tessa's cafe, 2 more coffee shops, and 1 small boutique that loved my rustic glazes. I posted everything online under at Harbor and Hearth. The photos got a few likes at first, then dozens, then hundreds. A woman from Jakarta ordered a set through DM. Then someone from Manila. Then Singapore. It wasn't fame. But it was proof. Meanwhile, my family barely asked. When we met for dinner, my father only asked if I'd found a real job yet. Audie teased me about being Instagram famous. I kept my mouth shut and let their laughter roll past like background noise. Then one morning, everything changed. A woman from an artisan marketplace emailed me. They wanted to feature my brand in their upcoming Makers Rising campaign. She said, "We'll need your business registration and banking details to process payments." My heart jumped, until I realized something strange. I hadn't registered Harbor and Hearth yet. I'd been meaning to, but money was tight. So how did she think it was already listed? I checked the registry site. And there it was, Harbor and Hearth Pottery, owner, Adifia Rahman, my brother. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. I clicked through the business ID, the email, the bank account. All in his name. My logo. My product photos. Even my description, handcrafted ceramics inspired by the warmth of home, he'd copied it word for word. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I drove straight to my parents' house. Audie's car was in the driveway. When he opened the door, he looked surprised, but not guilty. "Elara." "Hey," he said. "You look intense." "You registered my business," I said, holding up the printed registry page. He shrugged. "I helped you. You weren't doing the paperwork, so I did it. Someone had to make it official. In your name." He rolled his eyes. "It's temporary. I'll transfer it back once it takes off. But for now, this helps with tax stuff. Relax." "You stole it," I whispered. "Don't be dramatic," he said, grinning. "You should thank me. I'm protecting your idea." I turned to my father, who had walked in midway. "Dad, tell him this is wrong." Dad frowned. "He's just trying to help. Paperwork can be tricky. Audie's good with that." My hands shook as I held the paper. "You're siding with him. He's taking everything I've built." "Elara," Dad said quietly. "Your family. Stop thinking like an enemy." I left before they could say more. I got in my car, parked a block away, and cried, the kind of crying that leaves you empty and weightless. Then I called Tessa. When she heard what happened, she said, "Elara, listen. You need to fix this legally. I know someone, a lawyer who helps small creators. I'll send you her contact." That evening, I met with the lawyer, a calm woman named Priya. She read through the documents, nodded slowly, then looked at me with steady eyes. "He committed fraud," she said. "You have proof, product photos, timestamps, transactions. You can fight this." My voice shook. "But he's my brother." She didn't flinch. "Then make sure the lesson stays with him longer than your anger does." I sat back, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about clay, or mugs, or even pride. It was about being seen. And I was done being invisible. 2 weeks later, I walked into my parents' house again, not as the quiet daughter who needed permission, but as the owner of a stolen name. The living room smelled like fried shallots and lemon soap. My father was watching the news, Mom was folding laundry, and Audie was scrolling through his phone, smiling. He didn't see me at first. "Hey," I said softly. He looked up, smirked. "The artist returns. Come to apologize." I set a brown envelope on the coffee table. "That's a cease and desist letter. You'll want to read it carefully." His smile faded. "What the hell is this?" "It's from my lawyer," I said. "You have 7 days to transfer Harbor and Hearth back into my name. If you don't, we go to court." He laughed, but it sounded brittle. "You're joking. We're family." "You wouldn't actually." "I would," I said. "You registered my work, used my photos, took orders under my name. That's theft, Audie. Legal theft." Mom stood up, alarmed. "Elara, don't do this." He didn't mean harm. He knew exactly what he was doing. Audie got up, towering over me. "You think you're some big entrepreneur now? You don't even have employees. I made that brand legitimate. Without me, you're just a hobbyist in a shed." I held his stare. "Then why are you so scared of losing it?" For a second, no one spoke. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes every sound feel louder, the ticking clock, the creak of the ceiling fan, the faint hum of the TV still running behind us. Then Dad spoke, quietly but firm. "Sit down, both of you." We obeyed out of old reflex. Dad sighed. "I didn't raise you to fight like this. Audie, you went too far. Elara, this isn't how families handle things." "Families don't steal from each other," I said. Audie threw his hands up. "You all act like I'm the villain. I made it a real business. I got it noticed. Without my contacts, no one would even know your name." I opened my bag, pulled out my phone, and placed it on the table. A notification glowed on the screen. It was an email from the Artisan Marketplace, addressed to me, not him. They discovered the fraudulent registration and decided to feature the Real Harbor and Hearth, with proof of my copyright. I turned the phone so he could see it. "They know. And so does the bank." His face drained of color. You reported me." "I didn't have to. The truth did that on its own." He started pacing. "You don't understand what this means. I could get fined. My name." I stood. "Then maybe next time, you'll think twice before putting your name on something you didn't make." Mom whispered, "Elara, please. Don't destroy your brother." I looked at her, my voice soft but steady. "He already tried to destroy me." I gathered my papers, ready to leave, when Dad's voice stopped me. "Elara, wait." I turned back. His eyes, usually so stern, looked tired. "What do you want out of this? Money? Apology?" I shook my head. "I just want my name back. That's all." When I left the house, the sun was setting, red light spilling across the driveway like a curtain of fire. My hands trembled as I got into the car, but inside that shaking, I felt something fierce rising. 2 days later, Audie showed up at my studio, pale and silent. He slid a document across the table, the transfer papers. "You win," he said quietly. "No," I said, signing my name. "I just stopped losing." He nodded once and turned to go. But before he stepped outside, he paused. "You know, I never thought you'd actually make it work." "Neither did anyone else," I said. When the door closed, I exhaled, long and slow. The air smelled like clay and rain, the scent of beginnings. That night, I reopened the kiln for the first time in weeks. The heat washed over me, steady and forgiving. I pulled out a cup, smooth and strong, no cracks, no hesitation in its shape. It was time to start again. A year later, I stood in front of a wide glass window overlooking the city skyline. Inside that window was my studio, bright, clean, filled with shelves of earth-toned ceramics that caught the morning light like honey. The sign above the entrance read, Harbor and Hearth, by Elara Ramon. I whispered the name every time I unlocked the door, just to remind myself it was real. The studio wasn't huge, but it was mine, every inch earned with long nights, aching hands, and quiet defiance. I had 3 part-time helpers now, all local artisans I'd met at markets. We laughed, worked, and sometimes played music when the wheel spun too slowly. Orders came from cafes and boutique stores all over Southeast Asia. A magazine had even called me one of the region's most promising young makers. But none of that meant as much as the morning I saw my father step into the shop for the first time. He walked slowly, studying the displays, the mugs, the vases, the soft light reflecting off glazed surfaces. When our eyes met, he didn't look proud exactly, but softened. "They're beautiful," he said quietly. I smiled. "Thanks, Dad." He picked up a mug, one with a gold rim and a faint blue swirl. "You made this?" "Every piece here." He nodded, running his thumb along the curve of the handle. "It feels alive," he murmured. Then, after a pause, "Your mother would like this one." He bought 2 mugs, refused the discount, and walked out holding the paper bag like something fragile and sacred. I stood by the window, watching him go, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small in his presence. Later that afternoon, Maya came by with a box of old photos. "You've come so far," she said, smiling. "I still remember that night in the garage." "I remember too," I said. "It feels like another lifetime." She hesitated, then added softly, "Audie's been asking about you. He regrets what happened." I didn't answer right away. Forgiveness isn't a single moment, it's something you shape slowly, like clay. When Maya left, I sat at the wheel again. I pressed my palms into the spinning earth, feeling its rhythm, its patience. The clay yielded, soft but steady, taking shape under my hands. The motion was familiar now, like breathing. As the mug rose, I noticed a faint scar on my wrist, a burn from the old kiln. I used to hate it. Now, I loved it. It was proof of every failure that had led me here. When the piece was done, I etched one word under its base, home. I placed it on the drying rack, turned off the light, and stood for a moment in the doorway, looking back at what I'd built. The air smelled like rain again. I thought of the girl in the garage, the one everyone laughed at, and I wished I could tell her this. That the same hands that once trembled in doubt could one day build something unshakable. That revenge doesn't always come in anger. Sometimes it comes in peace, in standing tall, in owning your name, in watching those who doubted you drink from the cups you made. As I locked the door, I whispered the company name once more, not as a promise this time, but as gratitude. "Harbor and Hearth," I said softly. We made it. If this story touched you, share your thoughts below. And subscribe for more stories of Revenge Ember.